Hi, so this morning we're going to make a travel purse, and for that you will need zip 7 inches long, and I've cut 2 little zip extenders here. So we've got enough here for 4 passports, family size. And then on the outside you've got just a big square. And because we're keeping with the theme here, the loop is made in this blue, so that'll stick out here. If you can use a different fabric if you like, of course. And what I would do if I was you, once you've cut all your pieces out from the pattern, I would put them on exactly like that so you can pick them up and go to the sewing machine and work with it. We're going to start with putting the zip in, so it's always easier to have an extender for your zip. So you want to sew this across here so it comes down and ends up on that line. So you can see I've sewn it on here like that, and then I've also top stitched across here, so I can now cut this back. You can do it from this side if you like, straight down, and this is what I call a zip extension, so that can go here. So the zip is just basically made longer, which makes the attachment here at the end and the sewing much easier. The next step after that is then to place your zip on here, and you want to pin this all the way across and sew it on. I've sewn this on now so that I am just, you know, a little bit off the teeth there. So if you roll this over, look like this, you can see I'm not really anywhere near, it's kind of wobbly. So this line here doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be there. But then what I'll do is I open this out, and I don't need a special foot for this at all, you don't need a zipper foot, and I roll it so it sits right next to the zip, and I can just top stitch this down now so it'll look really nice. So now I've attached my zip to the inside. Let's have a quick look. That's quite good. So you've got enough space here to put something in. You've got the little zip extender, so it's easier when you sew it along that side. And so now I can make these pieces, and all this is basically right sides facing, sew across the top. Next one, right sides facing here again, sew across the top. Now this is how they're going to go on, but of course you've got quite a lot of layers here, and this doesn't need to go all the way down to the bottom, because obviously we don't want our passport to go all the way down there anyway. So this passport should sit somewhere there. So if we lift this off, you can see that it only really needs to go to there. So I'm going to have a stitching line there anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this with a pin here. You could have cut this just shorter, but I don't like doing that because you could get it wrong, don't know where to cut or whatever. So I know mine has to go to there with my German passport. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch from there to there. So I've done my stitching line now. So you just lift this up here, and then you can trim this off because you don't need it anymore. You could have loads of different pieces, but do we want that? No, we don't. So what you can do now is just tuck this in like that, so it's all nice and clean, and stitch it down there as well. So now it's all nice and clean down here. That makes good sense, doesn't it? So it's not so thick down here either. So now we can just place this on top, and we know we've done it. So my next step is to stitch these parts together here. So just a few pins will do, don't over pin this. Sew this on. The next step now is to open this out. Now you can't actually press this stuff here, the oilcloth or your tablecloth material you're using. So I would suggest that you just do this with your fingers. Sorry, it needs to go that way. So move those apart, and we're going to now top stitch from the outside on either side. Now we want to stitch our divider line, so make sure that your passport fits in really snugly like this. You don't want it too wibbly wobbly so it can fall out. Again, the English one is slightly smaller, so we'll take that back out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark this. So invisible marker is better, of course, you know, because you're going to see this pencil line. I want to do 2 lines actually on either side really close, because otherwise I think it's going to be a bit too poxy looking. So I've now stitched down here and down there. I could have put a ribbon on, but with this fabric I didn't actually want it to take away from the design too much. I've got this here now, and they go in really snugly, so that's brilliant. And that's how it should look when it's done. And there's 2 more, so if you've got 2 kids you can put those in. And we now need to move on to the outside, which is very, very simple to make. First of all, we want to get a rouleau loop. And what we're going to do is you fold this in half like this. You don't want it to be too thin. That is about, let's just have a quick look. It's about 5 mil. You want to stitch down on this side and then turn it. So now you can see here I've cut across there, and also please note that my stitch length is quite small. So I've used a small stitch length, I think it's just 2, just to make sure that it goes through. Now I'm using a ruler loop turner. It's a long thing like that. It's brilliant actually. You need to hold on quite tight at the top to make sure that it doesn't slip out, and we are just going to slide this over. There comes, see? And got quite a bit now. So this is a really nice round one. I could have left a little bit less seam allowance here, I suppose. You cut this 11 centimeters long. And then we want to put this 2.5 up, put a tiny little mark there. And then I'm going to find my middle, and that's 12. Well, that's pretty good there, isn't it? So I know that my rouleau loop has to sit on here, exactly where I want it. There's a centimeter seam allowance here that I definitely want to keep to. So I'm just going to pin this on. I'm going to run over this a couple of times and then just fold this over and very neatly stitch it from side to side. It's sewn in. So if you're working with polka dots and you cut out straight, it's actually really good because you can orient yourself on your polka dots. So if they are quite straight, which mine aren't actually exactly straight, but if you've cut out a bit better than me, of course you can align it with your polka dots. So you can see my stitch length as well is quite long. It's stitch length 3 on mine. So what you want to make sure is now that this is nicely tucked away, you don't want to pin too much on oilcloth because actually you can see all the stitches. So I'm going to do this somewhere where it's not going to be seen, like there. This is important you get it right, so don't swap this over like that. This is how it needs to lie, so that you've got the pocket there and your loop there, so that when they're together, we're going to do right sides facing here, they actually come out on top of each other. And you can see there's a little bit more here. If you have that, because of your seam allowances, it's important that this edge here is the correct one. So we're going to pin this all the way around, and then I'm just going to sew it, and I'm going to leave an opening gap in somewhere along the lines here, and I think it's probably best to leave it in a very thin place where you don't have a lot of layers. So that's at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this open from here to there, not too small a moving turning gap, because you won't be able to turn it through. And I'm also going to now cut this down, cut back your corners. And I'm going to cut this like that as well, because it's quite thick stuff and it doesn't really fray. And I'm going to turn it inside out. Now the first thing to do is to sew all the way around it, put your button on, and you're done. And there's my wallet all finished with my rouleau loop. The ruler loop should just be going over there. I actually had to undo mine, and I did it again because it wasn't quite in the middle. You notice that when you watch the video again. And also I thought it was a bit long. Now when we have a closer look at this, you can see that the edge is 1.5 up and the ruler loop is 2.5 in length. So basically it's a centimeter over the edge, yeah? Mine was a little bit too long. And then you can open this up and you've got a beautiful wallet. I've also stitched through here so I don't have such a large pocket, but of course if you wanted to keep something in there like your visas, etc., then it might be a really good idea to not do that, which is a line that you also see on the outside, and to leave it so that you can stick your visas in there or anything that you don't want immediately visible. This pattern is available for free from Sew Mama Sew. Link to the website is underneath the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.